Buenas and half a day. Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. The Committee on Education, Air Transportation, and Statistics Research and Planning will now convene this confirmation hearing. Today is March 12, 2019, and it is currently 2:01 p.m. For the record, and in accordance with the Open Government Law, public notices were sent out via email to all senators, stakeholders, and all main media broadcasting outlets on March 5, 2019, and the second notice on March 7, 2019. Notice of today's confirmation hearing was also available on the Guam Legislature's website. I'd like to thank my Vice Chair, Senator Therese Terlahi, for being here, Senator Telo Taidagui, thank you, and Senator Will Castro. Thank you for being present with us today. Before we move forward, I just want to, I don't anticipate anything happening in today's confirmation hearing, but in light of what has happened in the most recent past, I want to just lay down some of the rules, and I am requesting that those that are here to give their testimony in a professional manner. Please do not use profanity or address any of the members that are present within the hearing room, but please address the body. Also refrain from obscene gestures and anything that can be viewed as perhaps criminal in accordance with current law. So thank you, Mr. Bellinger, for being here today with us, and we will proceed with the hearing. And those that would like to testify, please come forward and have a seat at our table. Okay, just Mr. Bellinger, okay. And go ahead and please state your name for the record, and when you are ready, please proceed with your testimony. Thank you, sir.
My name is Zenon Bellinger. I'm from the village of Mongmong, born and raised on Guam, grew up in Chalapago. Half a day, Madam Speaker and Vice Speaker and committee members. Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony regarding my appointment to the AB Wampat Airport Authority Board of Directors. The mission of the Antonio B. Wampat Guam International Airport Authority is to ensure the safety and security of the traveling public, maintain a superior and reliable level of airport services for island residents and tourists, and support the development of air linkages and support facilities integral to the island's economic growth. As a professional engineer, I've had the opportunity to work on and lead various projects here on Guam and abroad during my career. Over the past 10 years, I've worked on projects consisting of the expansion of Kilo Wharf, construction of the new Elig Bridge, expansion of the new container yard at the Port of Guam, rehabilitation of the runway 6 left, 24 right at the Guam International Airport Authority, phases 2 and 3, installation of 4 hard stands and tarmac improvements at the terminal building at the Palau International Airport, and the electrical and civil design of the GIAA main fuel tank farm, upgrading of the Jet A1 fuel delivery system. I am currently working as a sub-consultant to HTD Pacific on the architect engineer services for the rehabilitation of runway 6 left, 24 right. This design project is scheduled to be completed by late May of 2019. This is looking at some Portland cement concrete in some areas rather than asphalt. Working on these projects has given me the realization that transportation is and has always been very vital to our island economy. Transportation by air and sea to bring our tourists by air and our supplies and products by sea. Our infrastructure on Guam continues to be upgraded with the continued increase in tourism and current military buildup activities. Bringing my engineering, construction experience, and project management expertise to the GIAA board will assist the authority in meeting its mission. My mission is to assist technically in upgrading the operations and management of the airport. This includes improved utilities to ensure the airport is a standalone entity, review existing utility routes and improve them to ensure better efficiencies for airport operations, review fire suppression and safety systems and ensure that they meet current industry standards, review and update existing security camera, runway lighting, records management and fuel systems upgrades so that these also meet current industry standards. There are numerous necessary upgrades that are needed at GIAA, including but not limited to the items already listed, but also in other arenas of the airport facility. I humbly ask for your vote of confidence in allowing me to serve as a member of the AB Wampat International Airport Authority Board of Directors. Jesus Masi.
Thank you, Mr. Billinger. I will now open the, I will now offer my colleagues if they have any questions. Do you have a question? You can say something.
Hafide, and thank you so much for stepping up to the plate. I know you're a busy man. I know you and your wife for many years now, and I've seen you at many different events, and you're always there to be a part of the community too. So my hat's off to you on that as well. As you know, there was a confirmation here for Dan Tairinko recently. Are you familiar with him, and how do you feel about his confirmation?
I've never worked with Dan in the past. I've seen him in social circles, and I know that he's worked with the various senators in the legislature, but I've never worked with him or had maybe not even any social contact with him other than bumping into him in public.
Okay.
So I can't respond to or comment on his behavior.
Okay, well, thank you so much, and I wish you the best of luck. I know you'll be a great plus to the airport board. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Congratulations on your appointment. I'm hoping that the president of the YMLG is watching, so maybe he could fine you for not wearing your pin. Actually, but hopefully not, because he'd fine the both of us. But in full disclosure, Madam Chair, I've known Mr. Bellinger for the good part of 25 years. He was associated with a project at the University of Guam while I was on the board and vice president with the student government at the time. And he had a tremendous reputation both with the president at the time, the acting chair, and then the chairman. Then later on, as I progressed in this community, I had the privilege of serving with him. I still have that privilege of serving with him in the oldest Chamorro fraternal organization in the world, and that would be the Young Men's League of Guam. I want to just emphasize for the record, typically, you know, the average person is not aware of your experiences, but you're a highly qualified, highly reputable professional in the engineering field, and I think you'd be a tremendous asset to the airport, and I congratulate you, and I thank you, and I thank the administration for having the foresight to give you the opportunity to serve the community in this capacity. So God bless you in your service, and congratulations to you and your family. And by the way, although it has nothing to do necessarily with your credentials, it has a lot to do with your character. You're an upstanding member of this community, and I think my only most recent reference would be the accomplishments of your son who's attending Father Duenas Memorial High School NGRTC program. So congratulations again, and Godspeed.
Thank you, Senator Castro.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Ballinger, for accepting this nomination and being willing to serve on this board. There's some serious issues that are facing the airport right now, and some of these stem, you know, they're similar to other issues that are faced by autonomous agencies, right? But first of all, may I ask, because in your testimony you had stated your experience, and I think you sound perfectly qualified to sit on the board. You've got much experience working with the government. I think you know the government very well, and of course, you're an engineer. That's something that's going to be very useful to the board. But is there any issue with contracting, I guess? Is there going to be any issue with a conflict of interest in pursuing business with the airport?
We're on the fuel farm project that we have. We submitted the 100% design for the upgrade of the electrical system and the drainage system at the fuel farm. So we should be done with that hopefully in about 2 weeks.
All right.
And then on the runway pavement design, that's a contract that we picked up over a year ago. Mm-hmm. And the phase 1 portion is supposed to finish by the end of April, and the phase 2 portion is supposed to end by the end of May. It may slip into June.
Yes.
But other than that, I have no other conflicts. But I've already.
Does this preclude you then from doing business like you're currently involved in subcontracting or directly contracting with the airport?
That's correct.
That's what you foresee, is that you would...
So we, my wife Debbie and I had issues with my going onto the airport board, because she's on the GCC board, and her tenure at the board has been over 10 years at GCC, and we have never applied for any RFPs or construction bidding there because of the potential for conflict.
All right.
We take that very highly. So I looked at the opportunities at the airport, and I said, well, I can put that aside and pursue other activities. There's a lot of work in the build-up. There's other government work that we can look at and go from there. So. All
right. Well, that's good. I think that's going to be a very clear path then. Speaking of procurement at the airport, so that you're, I'm sure, aware of, it's been all over the news about procurement issues regarding the concession contracts, right? And so that's been tied up in court for a while. But in the decision, the judge specifically said that the board did not, follow the criteria that was proposed or that was mandated by the legislature. And we've also seen other boards who were advised by the Attorney General in those other cases. They were advised by the Attorney General, and yet they acted in a manner that the Attorney General said would be contrary to law. And so, of course, we don't want the attorneys to be the one deciding policy. That's what the board members are supposed to do, but the attorneys are giving advice. And in particular, when the advice says something's legal or not legal, I guess I'm just wondering, what's your experience in dealing with boards, and how are you going to be able to handle that when, these are very high stakes for contractors that are involved in these procurements. And I imagine that there's a lot of pressure on board members that are dealing with these large amounts in procurement, for example, at the airport. And so I guess I just wanted to ask you, how do you feel about that? And do you have any insight of how to handle that in this type of situation? Oh, sorry, and you're also coming into a board where there's many members who will be there from these past procurements, right? And so you're the new person coming in and either put in a position to be critical of their actions or, do something different perhaps. And I guess that's what I wanted to see how you feel about that.
Okay. From 1986 to 1991, I worked in the litigation field, looking at construction projects that didn't pan out properly. We had 2 questions that we always asked. And so I traveled 40 weeks out of the year all over the U.S. looking at problem projects. The 2 questions were, why did it take so long? And the other question was, why did it cost so much? And with that, we looked at the ethics of what happened, And it was through a lot of different types of contracts. We looked at nuclear power plants. We looked at levees that collapsed in the Sacramento Delta. We looked at hospitals, and we looked at other projects. So being familiar with the legalities of things, I even learned that, you know, sometimes what looks proper on the surface may not be proper to even my client. We had just as a short example, we had an expansion of a hospital, and the hospital hired the top hospital contractor in Southern California. 18 months, $20 million. Took 31 months, $23 million. So they were asking for an additional $3 million in extended overhead. Everything looked good. What I wasn't aware of was when I was working on the construction side for the hospital, not the damages side. On the damages side, the hospital had hired all these surgeons and nurses and stuff, and they lost $8 million. So unfortunately for the contractor, he lost the $3 million that he spent it for extended overhead, plus another $4 million in fees, or the penalties because of the hospital having to pay for their salaries and stuff like that. So I'm aware of some of those issues and stuff. So it's difficult to just look at what's there and say, okay, what do we have? So it's when it comes to looking at the legal side, I mean, the board may have an attorney on the board, but from time to time we may have to seek additional counsel just so that we understand where we're at, whether we're following the rules and stuff. And if the AG gets involved, it's a matter of, okay, who's right or wrong. And I think the AG may be higher than the attorney at the airport, is my understanding in the scheme of things.
I guess it's been debated by different boards.
Of course.
They don't necessarily listen to the AG, but
right.
Let me ask you something else.
Sure.
So I read the transition report regarding the airport, and so they're making some recommendations regarding, of course, updating the master plan, finishing that construction that is over budget and over extended, right, in time, and for the corridor, and other issues revolving around that. Apparently, because of it's exceeded its budget, that it's put off the other capital improvement projects at the airport. So those have been put off, and now it's going to be up to the board to find other ways to fund those or prioritize them. But I'm wondering, and then I just kind of reviewed, the news for the controversies over the airport in the last few years, and one of them was about hiring a contractor who had, been prosecuted, I guess, or challenged in court regarding, I don't remember the exact, but it was some criminal complaints, right? And he had actually been prosecuted, and yet he had been hired by the board as a contractor, consultant. And so we're not there during these transactions, but I guess that's the type of thing the public's looking at. And then the amount of money of the contract was the other item that was in the news, right? It's over $1 million. But I'm also looking at things like when I first became a senator, people talked to me a lot about seemingly simple compared to huge, expansion projects, but seemingly simple things about the airport that could be improved and made better for the people of Guam. For example, parking, right? The parking rates were going up at the time, and they couldn't see any reason for that. It was the government's land, the government's everything that really built the airport up. And yet, when we lease out this parking structure to a private contractor, they make profit, airport makes money, and the people of Guam just keep paying and paying over and over. And I guess it's really changed. That's one example where that small change has made a big impact to how we greet people at the airport, how we say goodbye to people at the airport, and really, we pretty much drop them off now, right? Some people, in order to avoid the cost or the hassle of, getting into that parking. But I'm just wondering if you have any ideas, and the bathrooms were the other biggest complaint, right? Tourists are seeing this, and it's our first, I'm sure you understand. But I guess I want to know, so in addition to capital improvement projects, and I know that the bathrooms will be included in this third floor corridor project. That's how it was explained to us. That's part of it. That will also be addressed. So that's good. But I guess I just wondered if you, and the other part was, sorry, I'm trying to show examples of things that the people of Guam continue to pay for at the airport, despite the airport being an autonomous agency, supposedly raising its money, yet customs, right? We're still, people of Guam are paying for customs to rent space at the airport. And so I guess I just want to know how you feel about those, or if you have any other ideas where the airport could make some changes that would really make it more, friendly, user-friendly for the people of Guam, and I guess that, still does not sit well with me that we all know customs is integral. If we're going to have tourism, if we're going to have, import, export, that we want customs, we need customs. And,
Sure.
and the fact that they're going to raise their fees. Customs is proposing to raise their fees to charge all of us more, just so that they can pay off their space at the airport. And so I'm just wondering if you have any ideas that you might be able to flesh out with the board to help us in this regard.
One of the things well, let me rephrase it. The unspoken word is there's been a lot of issues because of 9/11, and the third floor corridor work is part of that.
Right.
And so because of the 9/11 issues, the airport has to be self-sustaining. That means power, that means water, that means all the different utilities, and they're not at the moment. But it's a balance on how do you handle that, because we are a small island, and we may not be able to be totally self-sustaining at the airport. So it's a balance on how do you handle that. Part of the other issues are they continue to truck the fuel from the fuel farm over to the airplanes. And it may be better to have a pipeline that goes there, and it will save on any future accidents. And it's probably easier. It may cost some money, but the issues on parking and the bathrooms, my understanding is there's a vendor that cleans the airport and they clean the bathrooms, and there's a lot of traffic there. I've seen the bathrooms at times very clean.
Yes, me too.
And at times when there's a lot of traffic where it needs to be cleaned. And then the parking issue, I agree with you that the rates are quite high. And sometimes it prevents all of us from seeing our departed seeing our loved ones depart.
Yes.
And so those are issues that I may have to look at and get more familiar with before I can comment on how we can handle that. But I'll take your ideas.
Well, I appreciate that. So I guess I'm just asking if you could just, while you're on the board, think of it from all of the, regular people of Guam, regular users' perspective also. That's what we want to do at the airport, right? We want to be able to greet people, we want to drop them off, we want to say goodbye, and we want to, feel like this airport is working for us, for all of us. And Jesus Masi, again, for your service on this board.
And as an engineer, we always ask people around us and people that are in the industry, how can we always improve?
Yeah.
So what you mentioned are some of the things that we can improve on. And I'll continue to ask those questions as I serve on the board, or even after I'm not on the board, you know, because it does help improve our island.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I'd like to thank you, Mr. Bellinger, for accepting this nomination. I too share the same sentiments as Senator Chalahi. If you're there for 15 minutes, you have to pay $2.
Mm-hmm.
If you're there for 30 minutes, you have to pay $4. And so, you know, really the people are expecting a service to be at least reasonable, right? Perhaps the first 30 minutes is free, and it used to be that way, but now they're charging you for every minute you spend. And many times, maybe some of us, it's just a quick drop-off or a quick pickup, and we're not even there for 15 minutes. And so I hope that as a member of the board, if you are confirmed that you look into these things, it may be minimal, but it impacts our island a great deal. It impacts everyone. Also, I am perhaps, I guess, comforted that you have experience with engineering and litigation issues as far as construction, because being the oversight chair for the airport, and this is fairly new to me, and discussions on the concessionaire agreements, and also the third floor corridor delays, which is costing the government more than a multi-million dollars. I think we need someone with the courage and also the expertise to say, this is right or this is wrong. And so I encourage you to, and I hope that you do that. I hope that you fight for what is right, and even if it's probably a little bit difficult, and perhaps there's something else that the people of Guam are not seeing. Customs and Quarantine, when I was first a senator, was my oversight agency, and I didn't agree the exuberant cost of rent that they were paying. It was over $2 million, and essentially the airport cannot function without Customs and Quarantine. If Customs and Quarantine were to leave, the airport would not be able to receive passengers. And so I hope that can be revisited. I'm sure that there are ways that we can also ensure that they get the money that they have earned through the passenger fee, and not have it funneled through the Guam International Airport Authority so they can take up what is due to them off the top, but allow the Guam Customs and Quarantine to manage their own funding resource. So thank you also for this service. It's truly a service, especially with your expertise. Guam is getting a good deal for you to, as a nominee with your expertise. So I thank you for your being open to stepping up to serving our people.
One of the things that we try to do with, what I try to do, and we in our business, is before we start fighting, we start talking and we communicate to try to determine what's the fight about. Okay, and then 90% of the time, we realize that sometimes it's an ego issue. Sometimes it really is a problem. Now, if it is a problem, then how do we get around it? And how do we solve that problem? And with all the professionals and the people that are there, we should be able to tackle these issues and take care of them. I've had ego issues where I looked at the owner of a construction company, and he had me out there on Easter Sunday. We're walking across the field. I said, Sammy, how do we take care of this issue? And he goes, I can move my superintendent, but can you give me 2 weeks? Because our other project is starting in 2 weeks, and we won't have any more issues on this project. I said, I'll give you 2 weeks. That's all we had to talk about. Problem over, took 10 minutes. But prior to that, it was like bang, bang, bang every day, so for about a month. So sometimes it's just a matter of finding out which button to press. And once we get there, most of the problems are solved. And it's all through communications.
All right. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much.
And I'd also like to thank your wife and your family for their support in this for you. I understand it will impact some of your, perhaps some of the business aspects of
At
what
the
you
airport,
do.
yes.
Yes, but I thank you for that sacrifice also. The people of Guam, thank you.
Thank you.
It is now 2:31 p.m. We are still receiving testimony for the next 10 days. This confirmation hearing is adjourned. Thank you. And
Thank
God
you.
bless.